eventually. And has anybody here sold their old car to some guy off the street, traded it into a dealership? How many traded in on a new car?
I sold one outright.
Did you? You traded off on a new car?
No, on a used car.
Used car. From a dealer? What's your worst fear when you go into a car dealership? I mean, when you hear the word, well, let's go buy a new car. What's your greatest fear, do you suppose?
I think that I would overpay. Maybe if I could badger with them, to get it for less, then I'd be disappointed if I had paid more for it.
Oh, yeah, well, so you think that they're going to charge you more than the car is worth, huh? Sell you more stuff than you...
I mean, I charge you more, I could probably get it for less. We try to negotiate it.
Has anybody here bought a new car within the last 5 years? Nobody. Well,
I think it's buying anything you don't know anything about is hard.
because you don't know the terms, you don't know what they're talking about.
That's right.
It's like you're an unarmed person dueling with a fencing master.
I don't know
That's
what
true.
they're talking about. I mean, pink, green, orange, I know colors, but I don't know colors.
Well,
I think the financing is the scary thing.
the financing, is that right?
I think that when they get you in the little room,
Oh, yeah.
and then they go just a minute and they leave you there for a while to stew, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
And meanwhile, it just...
And then another-
It's ugly from there.
Another guy comes in
Yeah.
and he
At
says,
least in one of the guys.
yeah, and he says,
Oh, there's no way.
there's no way we can make this deal. This kid is new, he's fresh,
Yeah.
and he's got a wife and kids, and we don't want to fire him, and we're going to if you don't buy this car. Yeah. So,
And I think also the fact that I think terminology of I don't know, they hand you all these papers to sign, and I want to sit and read them, and there's just too many to sit and read, and so you ask them what things mean, and they explain it, and it sounds so simplistic when they explain it, and then you find out what it really means, and it's something that maybe you wanted to think about more than you did.
yeah, we had a lady here last week who was just sitting in because she came a week late. See, the story in the Times said that the class was going to start last week, and it started the week before, so we had 6 or 7 people who came out that night, and it wasn't available because they had read the Times story and had not gone back to or hadn't called the Martinez Adult School, so there was a problem there. But she had really been bamboozled, and she had gone to a Nissan dealer, and she got down there and had her kids, and her husband was divorcing her, and he introduced her to a guy, and then he left. Well, she's got the kids, and they're screaming, and it's night, and her car isn't really great. Well, she said, the next thing I knew, we were driving to my house to get the ownership certificate to the car I'm driving. And she was so intimidated that she did it. And she bought a car right on the spot. Afterwards, she said, I had a terrible time trying to finance it. I had to skimp and save to just make the darn car payments. So, yeah, it really is a problem. And if you find a good car dealer, new or used, spread the word around. Because some guys have been in it a long, long time. And Jerry Sheebreeze in Oakland, for instance, family I've known for, probably 35 years. And Jerry Jr. is 3rd generation, and he's selling cars to families that his grandfather sold cars to. And they trust him. And that's really rare. If you can find an honest car dealer.
What's the last name again?
Whoa, Sheebreeze. Oh gosh, I didn't mean to give him an ad there. I'll have to.
How do you spell that?
Scheebries, I think. I mean, he's way down in Oakland, out in East Oakland somewhere. Yeah, tough neighborhood. Oh, used cars, just used cars. Late model, 1990 and newer. And we talked about that last week. You remember? Try not to buy anything older than a 90 if you can avoid it. Which also has an aspect when we start talking about auto insurance. But I did want to talk about selling your own car or getting rid of it, because there's 3 ways you can do it. And at the high school, where I worked for 23 years, we took in a lot of donated cars. And I would take in anything. And I would give a piece of paper to the person. We had a form letter that said, "Thank you very much for the donation of your fine 1936 Wartburg or whatever. And according to the Blue Book value, the car is worth X number of dollars low and X number of dollars high." So they could write that off. And some of the cars we got in were very nice cars. And we sold them and supported our program. Some of them were derelicts. And we sold them too. We sold them to the wrecking yard. But we still got $25 or $50, and that kept my program going. So there's these 3 possibilities when you have your own car and you have to do something with it. You can either sell it outright, or donate it, or trade it in. You can donate it for a tax deduction. You can sell the car for the cash, which is always nice. Or you can trade it in if the replacement comes from a dealer. Now, once in a while, you find a private guy who wants to take your car and trade something that he has. Well, you're not a car dealer, so avoid that at all costs. Don't take another guy's car in. But if you're going to, I'm sorry.
What is it that you look for when you think that you should be thinking about when you think you need a new car? Other than you're tired of the color. I mean,
Well, some people do that. Just,
well,
you
I
know,
know that, but
yeah.
I mean, is
When the repair bills start coming up, and you have to put on brakes, and then the guy will say the automatic transmission is leaking. When it gets to the point where the value of what you're doing, the repair job, is worth more than the car.
well, then how could you sell it?
Everything has a value. Everything has a value. There are guys who will buy cars with bad automatic transmissions because they put automatic transmissions in them and sell them themselves. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you doctor up a car that you're trying to sell, though I know how, but I don't recommend people doing it. But the first thing, if you're going to get rid of your old car, and this is one that always spooks people, and that is locating the ownership certificate. We must have had 24 cars turned into us, didn't have an ownership certificate. There is a form that you get from the Department of Motor Vehicles. It's an application for a duplicate ownership certificate, but it's a very involved process. So if you ever I'm sorry.
Extremely, you should have added.
Have experienced that.
The kid bought a car.
Oh.
It was autographed all the way around on there.
Uh-huh.
They never turned it into DMV. They just autographed it all the way around.
Oh, yeah.
We had to send registered letters to every one of those names, even though they probably didn't exist anymore.
My dad bought a car from a guy years and years ago, and didn't have an ownership certificate. Tried to find the guy. He'd gone to Argentina. Around the time of the revolution, he joined the guerrilla, so nobody even knew if he was alive or dead. So my dad really had a problem. And you can have those same kinds of problems if you're buying a car. If the guy says, "I'll get you an application for a duplicate pink slip," that's a bad way to buy a used car. If you buy it from a dealer, he's responsible. He's bonded. If there's a problem, you can nail him on his bond and put him out of business if he was really a bad guy, if it's fraudulent. But you can't do that with a private party.
I think he had to get some kind of an affidavit from an insurance company.
Oh, but put a bond on it, probably. Bonded it so that if somebody else came along and said, "That's my car," the bond would pay the guy off. So there's that aspect. But see, for a used car, it's such a hassle. And if you're selling your own, the thing to do is make sure you know where your ownership certificate is. Does everybody here know where their ownership certificate is? Everybody does, huh? Okay. Make sure it's not in your glove box. Because some people do that. They'll leave it in the glove box. And then if somebody steals your car, they got your pink slip too. All they have to do is sign your name on the back and they could sell it.
How do you work it out so that when a dealership takes your car as a trade-in, you know that they're actually giving you the money for your car and not actually
Just ballooning things around?
Yes.
You don't. Here's the way a guy would say it. If it were me, I'd go in and I'd say, "Okay, I want to buy that car. How much is it?" And they'll tell you. And you'll say, okay, I want to give you my car. How much is the difference? Because if they say, well, we'll give you $10,000 for your car on a $40,000 car, and it's really a $30,000 car, they're buying it for nothing. They're just playing a paper game. So what you're really talking about when you're trading off your car to a dealer is what's the difference between this car that you're selling me and my car. And if the numbers aren't what you think they should be, then you say, wait a minute, let's start over again. How much is this car? Okay.
Is it better not to tell them that you're going to use your car as a trade-in?
Well, they'll ask you up front.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, sure.
Been there.
Because they can balloon everything around so that on paper, you don't know what you bought. No money down.
Right.
But the payments are so high, you have to mortgage the farm to try and pay for it.
So Bob, do you mean that if they say this car's for $30,000, and you say, well, and they ask you about trade, and you say, yeah, I'm interested. How much would you give me for my car?
Well, I would say, how much is the difference?
How much is the difference?
Yeah. If it's a $30,000 car and it's not $25,000, then you know that your car is a $5,000 car. But if they give you a number first, they can jack the price of the car up, or play a numbers game, and they play it so fast, you don't know what's happening.
Well, even if you say how much is the difference, can't they do the same thing?
Well, it's harder if you have a firm beginning price.
You have the new car,
Yeah,
your car is worth.
yeah. See, what most hip guys will say is, well, I haven't decided whether I want to trade or not. I may just buy it outright and give my old car to my kid. Or my grandson, which is an advantage if you give a car to a family member, up or down, not crossways, not brother to sister. You don't have to smog the car.
I know,
So
but you don't have to pay the sales tax if you do it within the family.
that's correct. And that's all in the big yellow book there. But if you're trying to sell your car, make sure you know where the pink slip is, because you don't want to go through that rigmarole of trying to find a duplicate pink slip. You'd want to look at your car, and I've sold lots and lots of cars out of the house. And you'd want to look at it through the eye of somebody who want to buy the car, somebody else who might want to buy the car. And whatever looks ratty, they're going to find it ratty also. Some people don't even wash them. I was in Texas with my son-in-law. I think you were there, weren't you, Matt? When we went to look at that MG? Well, my son-in-law, my grandson's 14, wanted to buy a car for him. And they wanted an MG. I don't know why. British cars are just a problem looking for a place to happen. And I know because I got 6 of them as we speak. So we went over to look at this car, and the guy had an advertisement on it in the paper. So we went over, and it was, he advertised it as an MGB, which is the bigger model. Well, we got there, and it was an MG midget. And it looked like it had been painted with a broom. And the worst thing was the guy was changing a flat tire when we drove up. So, Rick, my son-in-law, just said, nice car, I hope you have good luck with it, but, it's not an MGB, it's an MG midget. You ought to know that anyway. And the guy said, well, we're just selling it for another guy who's in Louisiana, some wild story. And that triggered Rick immediately to say, well, the flag's down. There's a problem. If the guy is in Louisiana, how do we know it doesn't have a Louisiana license, certificate of ownership? Some states don't even require an ownership certificate, only a bill of sale. And a lot of stolen cars are washed out through southern states where they get a bill of sale. And then those cars are put onto the used car market. It's so big that at one time, the mafia had its own ships bringing in stolen cars from Europe. And I was working at Cal Auto Center in San Francisco at the time. And the way they were caught was they got careless. And there are certain things on cars, Ferrari or any car, certain things that have to be on the car if it's sold in the United States that are not necessarily on the car if it's sold in Europe. And they didn't change the windshields on 2 Ferraris. And they were the wrong glass. And the car got in a crash. The glass did what it's not supposed to do. And the police caught on to that, the FBI caught on to that, and they found it was just a tremendous scam. And they were stealing these cars in the Netherlands and washing them out because, you know, they could steal a car, and the cost is really right then. So they could put a couple of $1,000s into it and sell it for $30,000 in this country. So there are a lot of guys who are not really honest in the car business. So we want to make sure that you guys are not one of them. When you sell your own car, and when I sell my own car, I always change the oil. And I always change the filter. And I always look inside the radiator to make sure it doesn't look like coffee with cream in it. Even if your car is in good shape, change the oil, because that's the first thing guys can do is pull the dipstick out and look at it. And if it looks bad and he knows it's really good, it's something he's going to use as a bargaining chip with you. So you want to make your vehicle look as good as you possibly can. Now when I say detail the body and wash the engine and the car,
Don't you take it somewhere and have it steam cleaned?
well, yeah, you should, but that's expensive.
Well, I don't know where
And-
they do it.
And what I do is I take it down one of those 75, I almost said 2-bit car washes, but they haven't been 2-bit car washes for probably 20 years. I think it's 75 cents or a dollar, something like that, and you can hose them off that way. Or you can hose them off with gunk. There are things you can buy to clean the engine. Usually it's more of a hassle than it's worth. But some guys will clean up an engine and go to all the trouble of intricately detailing the engine. You know, get a little can of paint in there with a spray nozzle with a long tube on it, and you know, patch up the spots. And that's what a used car dealer does. That's called making the car into a cream puff. Frontline car, used car, put it on the front line. The junk, the hard cars, they get rid of. They sell them at an auction. And that's a whole nother world within itself. The auto auctions are just amazing, the people who show up to them. And they sell expensive cars too. They have an auction at Pebble Beach that I went to this year, the Monterey. It's called the Historics Weekend. They race old cars, and they have an auto show, and they have the Concours, the Elegance, and they have 2 auctions. And they auctioned off one car, Christie's of London, and they had an Alfa Romeo 1934, and I looked at the car, and it was kind of scruffy. It was a rare car, but it was scruffy, and I talked to the guy. I'd written a story about these guys years ago, so they knew who I was, and I said, gee, it's got chips here, and you know, the wheels are dirty, and blah, blah. Oh yeah, he says, but that's a nice car, we'll sell it, no problem. They did, for $1,300,000. They didn't have to detail that car. They didn't have to spiffy it up, because some guy from Argentina bought it, or Japan or someplace. Knew exactly what he wanted and just sent his man in. His man kept bidding up. Who knows how far it could have gone. But I thought $1,300,000.
Just for a car?
Remember, a Rembrandt painting is just a picture to hang on the wall unless you happen to be hip to what a Rembrandt is worth. This next part, having your car smogged, is a law that when you dispose of a car, other than to a dealer, you're obliged to have the smog check done. They call it pollution control inspection and a certificate of compliance. And the 2 things it has to do is, number 1, it has to be legal under the hood. And everybody here, if you have a car that's 66 and newer, I think it's 66 and newer, every 2 years you have to have the car smog checked. And you get that in the mail. So the 2 things the car has to do is it has to be have all the stuff on under the hood. In fact, I think we talked about this last week. And it has to have the tailpipe emissions correct, within limits. Now, I have one of those old, it's called an infrared analyzer. I have an old infrared analyzer at home. Used to be a smog check machine. It's no longer applicable because the new machines are like $30,000.
What if it's been within 2 years that you've had it done? You have to do it again?
60 days. If you've had it smogged within 60 days, then you don't have to have it done again.
Now, see, one time I had my car smogged, and they said it didn't pass, And somebody told me to try another station, only here we're talking about. And it passed with flying colors. I don't get it.
Well, you have there. One of two things happened. Either the first guy was honest, or the second guy wanted your $40 or $15 or whatever it is. And the guys who do them illegally,
Well, no,
they go to jail.
It was a service station that's supposed to be reputable, that went out by.
well, then the first guy, I shouldn't say he was trying to swindle you, because here's the things a person can do. If they check your car,
They wanted to do a bunch of work on it.
oh yeah.
So I have to get a smog, and I don't know where to go.
But here's the other problem. If they do a smog check on your car and it's cold, it's not going to pass. So whenever I did smog checks, and I was a smog inspector for, probably 15 years, I always took the car out, ran on the freeway, or told the guy, take it out and get it good and hot, and then bring it in and we'll check it. Because if it's just sitting there idling, it's going to cool down. And I've had cars on the infrared analyzer that were just sitting there idling, and they were passing. And as we talked, or as I was working on it, the needles would go way up because the catalytic converter stopped getting hot enough. So to smog a car right, it has to be really hot. And I always told people,
I should get it done in L.A.
well, you don't have to go right that far, but you should take it in hot, and if you leave it there to get the smog job done for a while, how do you know the kid doesn't just bring it in and it's cold? So you have to trust the guys who are doing it. Now, our friends who are not here tonight suggested Acme Garage, which is in Concord.
That was me,
Oh, that's right. And there was, oh yeah.
my husband.
Ah, so. Well, see, that's what happens when you're a high school teacher. You always expect the person to sit in the same chair, see?
That's because my husband loves to sit on the front row, and I always like to sit on the back, and since he's not here,
I
sit
see.
in the back.
Ah, so.
Sorry about
Okay.
that.
Well, that's okay. You can bring a note from mom or, whatever. So if your car has to be smogged, be able to prove it. Either prove it to the Department of Motor Vehicles it's been done in 60 days, or give the guy a certificate when you sell him the car. Now, you have to plan on how soon you're going to sell the car. If you're going to sell the car, you want to sell within 30 days after you make that decision. And the car business, a car should not sit on the lot more than 30 days, because then it's going to start costing money. In truth, what happens is every car on a used car dealer's lot, or if he's new and used, all those late model cars are going to be floored by the bank. The bank owns them. And by flooring, it means they supply the money, put it on the floor, hoping that that dealer is going to finance the car to you through that bank. But after that 30 days is up, then they want to start collecting interest on their money. So they want to sell a car in 30 days after they get it.
If you donate your car, do you have to have it smoked?
No, you don't. And a lot of people take donated cars, Salvation Army, all those guys.
There must be money in it because every other advertisement's.
Oh, of course there is, because just like ourselves at the high school, we would sell the car, and that ran the program. I got $180 every year to run my program. A barrel of solvent cost $140. So if it hadn't been for donated cars, we'd have been operating out of textbooks, and the textbooks that we had were auto mechanics dated 1966. So it was really ancient history. So I can understand why they close shops down, because they're dirty and they're messy and they're expensive, and they just don't want to have to deal with them if they can possibly avoid it.
A dealership would rather you not be pre-approved then when you go in to buy a
Oh,
car.
yeah. Sure, because they pick up a piece of that change. Best way to buy a car from a dealer is going with your own financing. Either here's a check, how much you want me to write it out for the difference. They don't like that because they want to pick up that interest.
Mm-hmm.
But they will, because if they sell you a car and it's a Camry, 96 Camry, blue, with black interior, they can always replace it. So if they're going to make a profit off you, that's okay, because they can always get another one right away. They call up Toyota wherever, and out they come. They used to store them out here in Benicia. I think they might have closed that place down. You'll drive by there, and there's, as far as the eye can see was Toyotas and Subarus and all those Japanese
Still is, I
cars.
think.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat diminished. A friend of mine worked out there in the prep department. Every car that came in had to have a pre-delivery inspection. Toyota's pretty good about that. And they had to make sure everything was on there. And if it failed here and it passed in Japan, I think the guy at the end of the line in Japan had to commit harikari or something. So they were very particular about making sure those cars were sanitary when they get to this country. But I think that is kind of diminished. The Japanese car business is in trouble right now. They don't have it all their own way. Anyway, if you're going to advertise your car, best place to do it is in, I think, Diablo Dealer, because you can put in a picture. I think it's $25, and it kind of describes it. And you can drive it down there, and they take the shot, put it in the Diablo Dealer. I think the Contra Costa Times ads are a little expensive. I'm not sure you get as good a results out of that as you do out of the Diablo Dealer. Diablo Dealer was just a real moneymaker, and the guy who started it operated out of his garage for a long time, and he recently sold it for a couple $1 million, the business. So it is profitable to be in that end of the car business. Now, your Chevrolet, where's the lady with the Chevrolet again? What year is that car?
79.
79. Well, let's say it was a 69 or 66, and it wasn't,
Used. It was, I bought it at 83.
so it was a used car when you bought it. Did you buy it from a dealer or a private party?
A dealer.
A dealer. Which one? Did you get a good deal?
McCall Chevrolet in here.
McCullough.
You're not,
I don't think they're in business anymore, no. Anyway, and how did you find the car? Just stumbled onto it, or?
It was an ad in the newspaper.
Uh-huh.
It was their featured car.
Is that
and
right?
I've been looking for a wagon for about 9 months.
Those are really great old cars. 9-seater,
Pardon?
9
No.
seats. Doesn't have the one in the back. I always loved those
No,
because I could
it's
get all the
it's
kids in.
just got the well underneath.
Oh,
the
yeah.
dashboard stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you had a really old car and you wanted to sell it, this is called Hemmings Motor News. Has anybody ever seen it before? Well, it's nothing but 600 pages of classified ads for Duesenberg, LaSalle. How long has it been since you saw LaSalle? A long time, huh? Old Indianapolis Racers, 36 BMW. That's all this thing is, just classified ads nationwide. And this is a moneymaker also. I'll pass that around so you guys can.
It's that much of a chance.
Pardon?
With all of those hundreds of cars in it. Grocery store.
Circulation is almost 1 million. And the only people who buy it are people who want to buy those cars. There's no stories, there's no text, there's no nothing except selling used cars, but very fancy used cars, and selling equipment or shows. So it's an enthusiast's kind of a Diablo Dealer. So I always bring that down to these kinds of meetings to show that there is, there's another aspect to the used car business. And the used car is a used car, but some of them are very, very fancy. Figuring out a price is really hard. How much you want to sell the car for. And I feel the best way to find a price for your car would be to look in the papers and see what other ones are selling for. And if you called up, for instance, and your 85 Camry, and somebody else had an 85 Camry for sale, and you called them up, and he's getting $4,000 for it, and you say, "Have you still got your Camry?" "Oh no, I must have had 40 calls for that, and the first guy came along, gobbled it right up." Then you think, aha, that's a little low. So you want to go up a little bit more than that and then come down. My son-in-law sold his house, and he started at, I think $250,000 for it. And he thought, gee, that was a ton of money. but people bid it up. And he finally sold it for over $300,000. And he said, whoa, if I sold it that quick, that must have been too low a price. So determining what kind of amount you want for your car can sometimes be a hassle. Unless you just want to get rid of the thing, then you say, make offer. OBO. OBO means or best offer. And you know nobody's going to offer you more than you're asking.
I always wonder why they say or best offer. I just don't get it, because that price means nothing.
Why do they say $49.95 instead of $5,000? I don't know. It's just what guys do.
Do you think you can get a better deal on your car through selling it yourself or through a dealership trade-in?
Oh, without a doubt, you're going to make better money selling it yourself. But you have to find somebody to buy it. Because if the dealer's going to buy the car from you, take it in on a trade, is 7%. 5% on new, 7% on used, less the trade. That's generally what it is. So
If you're buying a car, do you think, say I wanted a different used car than what I got, if I sell my own myself, would it be better for me to like check the paper and buy from a private person or go to a dealership again?
Well, it depends on how new. If you buy a really old car,
A couple of years.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, sure.
if you were going to buy a used car that was a couple of years old from a private party, the first thing I'd say is, why does this guy want to sell this car? Oh, I don't like the color. Or, well, we just hit the jackpot. Or, you know. Guys don't usually sell those cars that fast. It's either been a repossession, or it's going into a repossession, or there's some kind of a problem with that car. And that's where you have to be really careful if you buy a car from a private party. You don't know anything about the guy. In a lot of aspects, you're better off buying from a dealer, because hopefully he's going to be there tomorrow, especially if he's selling new cars also. But they make a lot more money on the used cars than they do on the new cars.
You know, something that we found when we were looking for a new car is they said to us, do you have a balance on the car?
Mhm.
Do you want to trade in or whatever? And, you know, we said, oh, yeah, we do. And he said, how much is it? And we innocently said, oh, it's $5,000. And so then I could see, I thought, why are we telling him? Because he started calculating, well, then, you know, we like to usually offer you, you know, enough so you can pay off your car and maybe a couple of thousand more. That's what one dealer told me. Well, another dealership had already offered us $4,500 more than that. And so I thought, gosh, you know, I know that I wouldn't deal with this guy if he's telling me so I thought, well, then you probably don't say. Maybe you shouldn't say that you have a balance on your car if you want to.
Sure, because they're going to pay it off.
So much more info, you know. Then they think, well, if we pay off their car, they're going to be thrilled, so it won't be much more.
That's
than
right.
that. I don't know. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a swindler's game, and it's not illegal, and really it's not immoral, because what they want to do is sell you a car and make the most possible money, you know. It's not like going down to buy a refrigerator or a stove from Sears. The price is that, you sign it up, you know. You don't deal on it. You don't trade off your refrigerator to the guy. I guess we don't want your refrigerator. What are we going to do? Give it to the Salvation Army. But they're not that tremendous high-ticket item. You know, we're talking about the average car that we tested last year, and we did 104 cars last year, new cars. The average was around $20,000, $21,000. I didn't pay that for my first house. But, you know, everybody's income is that much higher now. But I don't think income has gone that much higher than the price of
I
cars.
find I have a hard time being a wheeler dealer. I'm too honest. I say, oh, yeah, we have $5,000. Oh, why did I tell him? You know, I find myself having a hard time. My husband's worse than I am. That's why I make him come, because he's worse than I am. He'd sell him, give him the farm. He'd give it away.
Remember I told you that last week? A guy is the easiest consumer to bamboozle, I think, because as a mechanic, you could say, oh, well, you know, the double overhead super heterodyne has got a flat spot in the cam, you know?
Yeah.
And he's not going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. A woman will, but a man won't. Oh, yeah, well, sure, I took auto shop in high school, and I know all about it, you know. I'm really hip to this. I could fix it myself if I really wanted to, but I haven't got
One of my
time.
sisters works for General Motors, and she gets a deal on a car, and then when she sells it privately.
Yeah, it's
nothing
in-house
wrong with
trading,
it.
sure. I'm sorry.
What?
In-house. That means if you're part of the business, then they.
Yeah, but then she sells her car privately.
Yeah,
It's
I
a good deal.
I see nothing wrong with selling your own car. I always kind of enjoyed it. You know, I think it's a throwback to the old horse trading days. As long as you follow these parameters here, like accepting an acceptable price, go 10% higher, and then you can dick it with the guy, because that's part of the fun for the guy buying a used car from a private party. Oh, I
Don't
don't
forget
know.
those people up north that were buried in the backyard.
Yeah.
What?
Explain to him.
Well, there was these people that would answer ads in the paper to buy stereos and cars, and they took it out for a ride, and they buried you in the backyard and got your car.
Yeah.
So how can
Which is number, let's see, where are we? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't
Don't,
funny.
oh no,
I mean, it really happened.
sure. Don't go for a test ride with a caller. Guy says, well, let's go for a ride. And you're home alone. You may not make it back. That's happened a lot. That's happened a lot.
I've even asked them to leave their wallets.
I tell them to leave their
Well,
car.
I do too, but I said,
Yeah, but
not leaving your
They
car.
said in the paper some of them have a stolen car. They don't mind leaving it.
Well, you have to take your chances there somewhere, you know. I mean, if a guy's a pro, he's going to get it from you. If he really wants that car, he's going to find a way to get it when you park it in the parking lot. Stealing cars has never been more lucrative. And the hottest items are old Buicks. I don't know why. Buicks of the late 80s are hot items, because the clip shops will steal those cars, and a Buick has the same front end and the same fenders and the same doors as an Oldsmobile and a Pontiac and a blah, blah, blah. So a clip shop will steal those cars or have them stolen on order to get the fenders and the bits and pieces. They cut them up, scrap the rest, or melt it down, or put it through the compressor. And that's an inexpensive way to buy parts, because the parts business is sky high also. If you had somebody here had a Ford Taurus. Was that you who had the Ford Taurus? Who had a Ford Taurus here? Had some bad luck with it. Guess she's not here tonight. Well, if you had to put a Ford Taurus together with parts that you bought off the parts bins, just the parts, it's like $40,000. Now, one of the nice things about the aftermarket business in parts, where they're made offshore, called offshore parts, fenders, doors, body parts, rubber trim pieces, all made in Taiwan or in Thailand or those kinds of places. They've driven down the price of authentic Ford parts or authentic Chevrolet parts, because they had those parts so high that they had a stranglehold on the market. And now what they want to do, and there's a big lawsuit going on, and there's a lot of congressional pressure to have parts designs patented. Design of a fender is patented by Ford, so nobody else can make it. Well, of course, the offshore guys are fighting that tooth and nail, and I get a lot of that kind of publicity, press releases, all that kind of stuff, to try and have me convince people offshore parts are okay. And most of the time they are not. So when you have your car repaired after a crash, you want to make sure you understand what kind of parts are being put on, because they can put on offshore parts or used parts if they're good quality. Sometimes they're good quality and sometimes they're not. So you have to be kind of careful with your insurance guy when he's going to do the crash repairs. Anyway, don't go with the guy when he wants to check out your car.
You just mentioned a Blue Book, checking on that for, to see the worth of a used car.
Well, the only problem with the Blue Book is the Blue Book is a device for banks. It gives loan value. And they'll give loan value on 80%. Usually 80% of low book is what they'll finance.
So it's worth the 20%
Yeah. Or supposing it's a car like a, well, let's see what's hot. And a couple of years ago, the Mazda Miata little two-seater was, the hot car. Everybody wanted one. So guys would buy them and sell them as used cars. Immediately, get the pink slip, immediately put it on the market for $10,000 more than he bought it for. So maybe the Blue Book was $5,000 less than the new price, but if you wanted one, you had to pay $10,000 more because there weren't any of them around. So it's called a soft price or a hard price. And if it's a soft price in the book, the Blue Book, if the high book value in the book is a hard value, that's what you're going to pay for it. It's kind of interesting how they ask, how they get those numbers. They send a questionnaire around to a bunch of car dealers, all up and down the West Coast and in Arizona and all. And they say, what would you pay for this car? The guy says, 91 Chrysler LeBaron. Well, I'd pay $9,000 for that. Okay, $9,000. Then somebody else will say, well, I'd pay $8,700 for it. Okay, so they take all these numbers and average them. So is that really what the guy would pay for it? Who knows? But it's better, for Kelly, it's better than nothing. But the Blue Book values are not chiseled in stone. They're just a place to start. And if you're buying a car used from the papers and the guy says, well, I'm selling it for low book. Well, maybe low book is absolutely the best possible price you could pay for that car, the highest price. So the only way you could determine whether that's a good price is find another one just like it and see what that guy is selling it for. Or if he sold it fast or whatever. But it's really a hard, it's almost like an art form, buying and selling cars. A lot of guys love it. They're just horse traders, and they're not happy unless they have a couple of cars in the front yard that have a for sale sign on. And when you sell your car, don't accept a check, especially on Friday. Because you may get to the bank on Monday and there's nothing there. Does everybody want to go get a cup of coffee or take a break? Who does? Besides me. Okay, everybody agreed? Okay, we'll make it fast, huh? David, you going to go for coffee? If you bought your car and you own it outright for the last, probably 5 or 6 years, the bottom of the ownership certificate will have one of those notices of transfer. Everything in there?
I don't see the transfer.
It's right here.
Well, that doesn't say that.
Notice of release of liability.
Oh,
Notice of transfer is kind of a buzzword. Now down here, where it says deliver the documents and photostat everything, you're going to give the guy the ownership certificate because he's not going to give you the money unless you give him the paperwork along with the car, because there are a lot of bad guys out there who will sell cars they don't really own. And they'll say, oh yeah, well, we'll deliver the papers later. Or I don't have them with me right now, but I'll give you this handwritten note that says you own the car. State doesn't go for that. They like official pieces of paper. And if you send in a note that says, I just sold my 98 Gogomobile to Joe Blow and here's his address, they won't accept that. They'll throw it away. The only thing the state accepts when you transfer a car is this piece of paper right here. Notice of release of liability.
is this in lieu of that yellow piece of paper they used to give you?
Yeah. This is more detailed. And what they want on there is what they want on there. What's on there is what you have to put on there. Like, excuse me, the mileage. They want the mileage. And they're not the only ones who want the mileage, because if you're fooling around with a speedometer on a used car, it's a federal offense. And guys do time for that, because it's called rolling the speedo. Can't do that. You roll the speedometer back and you can go to jail. And it's very common on cars that go through the auto auctions in the deep south, because they have no way of checking out really who owns the car and no way of going back and ascertaining these kinds of bits of information. And a friend of mine who sells exotic cars sold a Mercedes-Benz, and he put down that it had 98,000 miles on it, because that's what the speedometer said. But it didn't have 298,000 miles on it, but the speedometer didn't go that high. So the guy who bought the car thought he was buying a relatively low mileage Mercedes-Benz, and the thing had been around the world and you know, a hard life. And it blew up. Guy got his money back because this friend of mine, this dealer, had not disclosed the fact that it was extremely high mileage. So make sure that piece of paper has everything on there. The mileage, if they want the serial number, they want you number for number, that serial number. Most modern cars, in fact all modern cars, have the little plate with a serial number, vehicle identification number, VIN, in the windshield or in back of the windshield. And there are guys who will alter that. They'll pull out the windshield, alter the plate, put it back in, and they can sell a stolen car as a car that has been resurrected as a wreck. They'll buy a wreck, steal a good one, change identities. And if the Department of Motor Vehicles is onto the fact, all manufacturers have secret places they put those VINs. They're stamped into the body. And I worked at Cal Auto Center in San Francisco for a couple of years. And they had the Datsun franchise. And the car carrier would come in. Car carrier's thing has 9, 10, 20, 15 cars on it. They come in with a manifest for 11 cars and they drive out with 12. They just roll it up. And all the guys there in the docks were in cahoots with it. Take the car back to the chop shop, change those VINs with a car that had been stolen. I'm sorry, they stole the one car, bought a wreck, changed identities, and sold it as a resurrection of junk. Perfect car. But what they didn't realize is to what extent the state will go to recover those cars. On the firewall, there's a place where the number is stamped in to the body. And these guys cut that out and put the other number in there. What the state did was they went inside the car, pulled out all the insulation on the firewall, and found where it had been welded in. On the outside, you couldn't see, but on the inside, it was welded in. And I think they'd stolen hundreds of cars from the port down there. And it's big money. You know, we're not talking about selling stolen refrigerators. We're talking about $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 cars. So it's a business. A person.
Before I tore a car, I'd take all the insulation out and look underneath it.
Well, the state wanted to bust these guys pretty good.
Oh, because I couldn't do that. I wouldn't know what I was looking for.
Well, see, you're not one of the state inspectors or investigators. And I wouldn't want to be. Terrible job. A little dangerous, too. Anyway, notice of transfer, make sure that is totally filled out. Also make out a bill of sale. Put all the information on that. It's also on the back in Spanish. So you can fill it out in both languages, or either language. Fill out everything, including your daytime telephone number, your driver's license numbers, and all that kind of stuff. And give that to the guy who bought the car. So you're going to give him an ownership certificate, and you're going to give him a bill of sale, and the notice of transfer you send in. Don't give it to him to mail for you, because he just might crumple it up, throw it away, and as far as the state knows, you still own the car. This is a notice of transfer. Right here. Release of liability. Now that's gotten me out of, and I photostat everything. Every time we sell that stuff, we photostat everything and keep copies and have them filed away for years. We sold a 66 Chevy to a kid at the high school, and he, maybe we owned it ourselves, I can't remember exactly. But in any event, we sold this car to this kid, and he went out and he drilled some poor girl at a stop sign. You know, just went right through her Datsun, tore her car all up, tore his car all up. which was okay because it wasn't much of a car, but hers was a nice car. Fortunately, it didn't hurt her. He didn't have any money, didn't have any insurance, didn't have a job. He was living in the back of the Chevy. So what could her insurance agent do? He went after us. And he said, Mr. Hagen, so-and-so smashed up your Chevrolet that you own, and you are liable as the legal owner. And I said, well, we sold that car and sent in a notice of transfer. And the guy said, well, they have no record of it in Sacramento. Now, the law says you don't have to hand deliver this piece of paper to the Department of Motor Vehicles. All the vehicle code says you have to do is mail it in. But I always keep a photostatic copy. So I said to the guy, well, I have a photostatic copy of what I sent in, dated so-and-so, the date we sent it in, and I have a photostat. Would you like me to send a copy to you? And he said, no, that won't be necessary. But he'd have gone after me or the school or my family if I hadn't been able to say, wait a minute, law doesn't say I have to hand deliver it to Sacramento. All I have to do is mail it. But I couldn't have proved it unless I kept that photostat. So whenever you deal with things with the Department of Motor Vehicles, or you're selling anything that's a high-ticket item, anything has a license, make photostatic copies and make sure that you know what's happened to it. Because the law does not say you have to go down to the Department of Motor Vehicles with the guy who buys the car and stand in line with them. And that's a nice way to do it. Some guys do that. Stand right in line, say, I'm going to transfer my vehicle into this guy's name, give her the money for the transfer. Some guys do that. And that's really a good way to do it. But the law doesn't say you have to anymore than it says you don't have to accept a check.
So what are all the documents if you're selling a car that you need to sign
You've-
over to them?
you've
Bill
got
of
'em.
sale, Release of liability.
No, not the release of liability. You keep that and mail it in yourself. All you have to do is give them a bill of sale and the ownership certificate. And make sure that if you had bought the car after or paid it off, and somebody else is on as the legal owner, Bank of America, Federal Credit Union, or whatever, make sure they've signed off. Because some guys don't do that. Make sure when you make that last payment on the car, you get the pink slip and somebody stamped it that they own it, or that you own it, and they don't own any part of it anymore. That is sometimes a problem. Not often, but it can be a problem. I've run into it twice, and I had to chase down a bank guy in San Francisco to get him to sign it. And the only way I could do it was to threaten him with, he said, well, we're not going to sign that off. That guy still owes us some money on it. It was kind of a derelict car. And I said, okay, what's your address over there in San Francisco? And he gave me the number. And I said, well, the car doesn't run, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tow it over and park it in front of your place and throw the keys away. And you guys own it, and your car is going to be stuck on Sansom Street in San Francisco. He said, where do you want me to send the release? And that's what I had to do to threaten the guy. And I would have, because a car is not like like an old pair of shoes. You can throw a pair of shoes away. You can't throw a car away. If they want to catch you and you just abandon it, they want to find out who owns that car, the state will find out. So you want to be very careful once you get rid of that car, it's out of your name. Now, I wanted to touch a little bit on insurance too, though I suppose probably everybody here is as hip on insurance as for sure I am, because I always deal with the same guy, and I have for years. And the reason I do it is because he will transfer my insurance from one car to another, because I have a lot of cars. And if I'm going to drive the RV for a while, or I'm going on a trip or whatever, I'll transfer the insurance, just call them up and say, hey, cover me off this car and onto this car. So that's one of the advantages. The average guy, the average person, spends $640 a year on insurance, and most people don't shop for it.
Well, they kind of got you in a bind.
They sure
because
do.
You can't just go out and get another insurance. They want to know why you're leaving.
Why you're
your
leaving.
Insurance.
Yeah. But I just say, what I would say is because it's less expensive. And most people don't shop for it, and they should. They don't shop for insurance any more than they shop for for a shop. And it does pay to shop around, though my personal feeling is that once you get a good agent and he's dealt with your family for a long time, it's like Shebury's Used Cars. They know you, they're going to do a pretty good job for you, and you don't have to worry too much about it. If you have an expensive car that's more than 5 years old, or less than 5 years old, it's probably a good idea to keep the collision and the comprehensive insurance. But once it gets older than that and it gets drilled, they're going to write it off anyway.
Well, wouldn't a 5-year-old car, I mean, it would be worth maybe, $5,000 or something? I mean, depends on the car, of course.
Yeah.
The car. But, and maybe it would cost you $1,000 to have it fixed. It seems like a big deal.
Well, not many cars are $1,000 to get fixed anymore if they really get hit hard.
I mean, just maybe even a not so hard vehicle.
Well, it's kind of something you have to, kind of judge for yourself whether you think it's worth it, because it's kind of expensive, and we have comprehensive insurance on our cars until we pay them off, and then I don't. The only thing I do like to make sure we have is uninsured or underinsured policy that pays off in the event that the guy who hits us, is living out of the back of his car, because that can be real sticky. If you're underinsured, and we've had this happen in our family, underinsurance on a car, smashed into a new car, the insurance company said, sure, we'll pay off $3,000, but you're going to come up with the rest. And it took him a long time to pay it off. And it goes on your driver's license if you don't pay them off. They go after you. The state of California is very tough on that now. This number down here, California Auto Insurance Questions, call 800-927-4357. Has anybody ever called one of those numbers? Whew. I must have been trying to talk to them for 10 minutes. And then finally they said, push the pound symbol. Push the pound symbol, and it went back into the first part of the loop. You've reached the California State Automobile Insurance Division. Please, if you know the number, et cetera, et cetera. So that's always a problem when you deal with the state and their automated phones. Now, there's one more piece of paper in that DMV envelope that I'd like you to take out. And that's this one right here, and I think it's called the S1 or SR1 or something like that. Has anybody gotten into an accident where they have to report it to the state? Well, if you have been in a major accident, I think the limit is $500. If it's over $500, you're supposed to turn it in not only to your insurance company, but to the state of California, the DMV, so it'll go on your record. But some people will say, I'm sorry,
Is that on your car or the other car?
any accident that involves over $500.
On either car?
Yeah. You turn that in. And I've had the experience, well, actually it wasn't me, it was a friend of mine. And it was an accident, and the guy who was involved in the accident, the other party, said, well, why don't we just take care of our own cars? That way I won't be in the insurance, and we won't have it on our driver's records or any of that stuff. You take care of your car, I'll take care of mine. So this guy did it. His name was Bob Soul. Well, what he didn't know is that the other guy sent one of these in. He sent in one of these forms, and Bob didn't. So the guy who was the other guy involved sued Bob Soul and said, you violated the law. You didn't send in an S1 form. Well, he said, you said, but, oh yeah, well, here's my attorney's number. He wants to get this taken care of. So even though it's going to go on your record, I suggest you send this in, because if you don't, it's against the law. And if the other guy does and you don't, then you got a problem.
Yeah, but that $500 is, better to do it even if you think it's under it.
Oh, yeah,
It's over.
absolutely.
That happened to one of my kids one time.
Did it, and he didn't turn it in, huh?
We didn't turn it in on me, and what was worse, he was coming, that overpass on San Pablo onto the freeway, and there was a red light stopped, and it was a green light, and this gal in this old Volkswagen stopped in front of them. And the people on the pedestrian bridge all said, take my name, take my name. It's a piece of junk, you know. She claimed all kinds of stuff.
Oh my.
Highway patrol came to catch him.
Well, you know what the law is. If you hit somebody in the back, you're at fault.
Yeah, but there are exceptions.
Well, not to the law. They say you
I
should
thought they
be.
changed that
I don't think so. It's in that book.
in that book. Well,
Anyway,
you should have taken everybody's name.
yeah. Oh yeah. Always get as many names. Usually everybody says, I didn't see a thing. I didn't see it.
Oh, they all came running over.
Oh, did they?
One
They
was near the college.
Oh yeah. Well, you know how college kids are. They're going to change the world. Except for me, I was 46 when I started college, and I just wanted to get a.
Raisin.
Oh, I told you that story, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, one of my less bright moves. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe because I want to ask this before we start on something else with all this rain. I got stuck in Monday morning under the Loveridge Road underpass when it was all flooded. Could you, we talked about it at work, and a couple people were in disagreement on how to go through high water. We had no choice. The CHP didn't stop everybody at Summersville, and we had nowhere to go but through several feet of water. And
Whoa.
yeah, I was just a little bit upset. I mean, it was a 10-mile backup. This was at 4 to 5 in the morning too. But when you
Worst
did-
possible scenario.
It was just awful. But the pumps broke or something. But anyway, so they said 3 feet of standing water, and I'm going, my car is awful low.
That's about up to here, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was lower than that when I went.
And on an older car, it instantly floods everything out.
Well,
Instantly.
the pickup behind me hit it hard, I guess, behind me, and his bow waves went past my car, and then it back, and it was coming up over my headlights. And
Oh,
I
my
thought, God,
God.
please don't let me stall here.
And you did.
No, I didn't, but I got out of it and tapped my brakes a little bit, and I just had my brakes put on. And I pulled off real quick, and it was just chugging and on Loveridge right there. And of course, the signal went red, and I stalled. And she started up on a 10-year-old car. It started up for me, and I finally got it going, and I just let it run. And the smoke and steam was just
Sure.
everywhere. But and it got me to work. But
Well, it can do
it's
one
working
of-
okay, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering.
Well, you
if
probably-
go through it fast or
Well, I don't like to go through it fast because suppose something else is in there.
this one?
Suppose there's something else in there, in the puddle.
Oh, well.
You know, I mean,
2,000 cars went ahead of me.
oh well, then
Right,
yeah.
you know, I
But
mean,
personally, I don't like to go fast like that. I like to get through as easily as I can, and hopefully the water's not higher than the air intake. That's the problem. See, modern cars are computerized, and they resist under hood water more than the older cars did with the Kettering ignition system.
what's older? Mine's 10
And-
years old.
Well, let's see, that'd be a what, 90, 80,
Mine's an 85.
85. Well, it could have the old style ignition, or it could be computerized. But the problem is if you get water in the air intake, because then it just floods the engine out. You got water going in there instead of gasoline,
You
And-
have to be pretty high, I guess.
unless it splashes up. See?
I've got a dam in the front, which helps slide it off the ground.
Maybe pushed it out of the way. But it had to have enough water up in there to make it foul out. And if you want to look at the bright side, you know, like they say, make lemonade if you have a lemon. Okay. The bright side is that the water gets in there, it's going to steam clean the inside of the combustion chambers and may help the fuel mileage eventually. That's a plus way to look at it. See, if you have to look at, you know, trying to get something good out of it.
So the fact is, when I got up, it was just like this.
Yeah,
and
it was flooding
stopped.
itself out now.
But it did start up again.
Yeah.
A little bit of pumping. And I've driven it for so long, I know what to do.
Yeah.
But I was just
Like an old friend. Yeah.
It was raining and early in the morning.
Military vehicles have a sealed system, and they'll have a snorkel going up. Well, the Jeeps we drove in Korea, we had ones that were.
Is there any need to take it to the? I mean, after I went through Pittsburgh and up, and I just kept my fingers crossed all the way over through the pass, and
I don't think so. Dried out. It's probably working fine.
Nothing like, I was thinking transmission or,
The only time that you have to worry about a car in a situation like that is if it's stuck underwater. If it's in a flood, then the water seeps into everything, the upholstery, the heat and air system. Remember we discussed cars that were caught in a flood, you turn on the heater and silt comes out of the defroster. So if they're stuck in a flood somewhere, that's bad. If you just have to run through a deep puddle, it's not going to create a problem for you. Because as soon as you hit the brakes a couple of times, they dry out and they're fine.
How can they have these underpasses that fill up with water? I think a friend of mine got stuck in that one.
Don't ask me why or how the government does anything, because I don't know.
Well, I think that's criminal.
Well, nobody ever said life was going to be
Her
fair.
son was picking her up. She had surgery in the hospital.
Guy to talk to is
Bring
your
her home,
supervisor.
and the car stalled in this water. She's in the hospital gown. Had to get on that.
Oh boy, that's as bad as my wife with the dog on the Black Point cutoff.
Briefly, I had what is hydroplaning? I mean, I've read.
Hydroplaning. Okay, now that's a phenomena that it's a tire phenomena. It's where the tire gets up on top of the water.
I don't know, that's like walking on water.
That's well, actually, you take a stone and you skitter it along, and it jumps. What really is happening is you don't have total tire contact with the asphalt, with the pavement. Now they make some tires that supposedly pull the water out of the way, and they probably work well. As a rider, I get invited to a lot of those demonstrations of these kinds of tires. They'll take you out and put you on a skid pan, and they'll, do all kinds of neat stuff. And they probably work very well. The problem is they don't last as long as a more conventional tire. But hydroplaning comes when you're really driving faster than the conditions allow.
And it's not in an area like she was talking about that she got in. Is it just on a
A good example, years ago, they had the freeway going to San Ramon, had a curve in it, slight curve as it just came out of Walnut Creek. And the water would come off of the side of the hill across, and it was a layer of water. And a friend of mine, David Behrens, teacher at DVC, came through in his 63 Ford or something like that. It's when the freeway first got going. And this thing, and he was not a fast driver, but this thing hydroplaned up on the water and spun, went down into the divider. And his wife said, I'm going to stay here, you go get a tow. Yeah, he says, I'd feel better if you came with me. So, and it was raining, and she didn't like that, and she was mad. They came back with a tow truck driver, and there was another car on top of his.
Oh my God.
So he was very thankful that he insisted that his wife come with him. And to this day, if you go down that freeway, you'll find grooves cut in the freeway to drain off that water. So in wet weather conditions, you have to be really careful. And a lot of people don't know that. That's why you see so many accidents. I just talked to a guy today who puts on the driver training school for the police academy at Los Medanos. And I took that training some years ago. How to drive in a skid pan, how to, they put a layer of water and oil on it. And you are driving on this stuff at about 5 miles an hour like you were doing 80 miles an hour on the freeway. You would get the same reactions. And I asked him, do you teach that for private parties, for just people? Somebody wants to take a driver training program. I called Skip Barber School at Sears Point, and they're going to send me a bunch of stuff on taking their accident avoidance program at Sears Point. But up there, they put you on a racetrack with a new Ford, and they want you to go 90 miles an hour because they think like race drivers. Whereas Los Medanos thinks like a policeman who's in pursuit of somebody. And there was very different kind of driving than they taught at Skip Barber's school. So I asked him, does anybody do it? He said, no. I said, have you guys ever thought about doing it? He said, no. You think anybody'd be interested? Well, I think a lot of people would be interested, especially since you don't have to use your own car. They supply the cars. So maybe there's a upcoming kind of driver training that would be available to people. I know a lot of people who could use it. I think it ought to be called advanced driver training and make high school kids take it. because they're really accidents looking for a place to happen. Any more questions on this selling your own car or any of that kind of stuff? Okay. Because I do want to, we only got a few minutes, but I do want to talk about the stuff to keep in your car. Now, I know a lot of guys who are mechanics who will keep a full toolkit in their car, more stuff than they could ever use. They could do an overhaul on the side of the highway, grind the valves, pull the heads off, and all that kind of stuff. But the first thing you always have to keep with your car, is this in focus here, is your driver's license, and keep it in your pocket or in your purse. Don't leave it in the car when you leave. Always keep your driver's license right here. All guys have fat wallets. It's kind of like a two-dimensional filing cabinet for a lot of guys. My daughter tells me that I should always keep it up here because it affects your sacroiliac, but I'm okay. In your car, you should always keep your documents, like registration, proof of insurance, though that's not necessarily the law anymore. But I like to do it. I like to have that proof of insurance. And any kind of warranties that might pertain to the car, especially something like the tires. If you buy a new set of tires and you have a warranty on it, it's not going to have a flat tire in front of the guy's place who sold you the tires. But if you have a warranty that covers somewhere else, like in Louisiana or whatever, you may be able to get the tire fixed for free or get a new tire if it packed up or something like that. So keep those warranties in the car, in the glove box. Notepad and a pen. That's something I just kind of recently added to this. And what drove it home for me was my son was driving our little van out here, and one of the quarry trucks threw a rock up and broke the windshield. Just put a couple of nicks in it. Well, he had the pad there and the pencil, got the guy's driver's license, realized where it happened on the freeway 580 between so-and-so off. I wrote that all down, and we called the guys and told them they broke our windshield, and they want us to send us a form, and we did, and the guy sent us back a letter saying, wasn't our truck, we didn't do it. Has anybody had that happen?
Sure.
And they say, we didn't do it. And of course they know they did, because it's an automated call. You call up the quarry guys and they say, oh, is it about a broken windshield? Okay, just a minute, punch, punch. If you believe that you have had your windshield broken by one of our trucks, blah, blah, blah. So he disallowed it. And that's pretty smart business on their part, because if you're going to get that money back, you got to file with small claims court, even if you have all your documentation, and we do. So for a $175 windshield, we have to go to Oakland, file in small claims court there because it's in Pleasanton, and then we got to go out and serve the guy, and then we have to go to court whenever it comes up, and then it's up to the judge. So we lose 2 days for $175. Well, it's not good business for us to do that. So unless I really get irritated and decide I've got something else to do in Oakland anyway, I probably won't pursue it. But what I will do is call the guy and say, could I have your exact name and your office hours? Why do you want to know? Well, your truck broke our windshield and we're going to come out and serve you with papers for small claims court. And he said, well, I didn't break your window. And I said, no, but you're the guy who said you weren't going to pay it. So I want you to come into court. I don't want one of your flunkies. I want you to come in because you're the guy that signed it. So time will tell if that will work. Hopefully the guy will say, okay, man, we'll send you a check. How about settling for $100? Okay, $100 is better than no bucks. So it's kind of a bluffing game.
Wouldn't your insurance take care of it?
Don't have comprehensive insurance because it's too old a vehicle.
You know,
For me.
Back east, and we got hit by lightning, and it paid for my new radio.
Is that right? The radio, huh?
Well, blew it out.
Oh, I bet it did, right through the dashboard, huh?
I don't know. You know, the big trucks all around me. I don't know why it picked on my car.
Might have been the color.
I don't know. That's not very nice.
Hey, life is not fair. Anyway, the other things you should keep. First aid kit. In fact, I have all this stuff on the back there. I keep that stuff in my car. The first aid. What's that?
I've been looking for a first aid kit for a gift.
Grand Auto?
Every time I go, they tell you, make your own. It's
Who tells you that?
The drugstore.
Well, tell them you don't want to make your own. Tell them you want to buy a first aid kit. If you got one to sell me, or don't you? Where's the manager? I want to talk to the manager. How come you can't satisfy my needs? Got to remember, you're the boss. If you got the money, you're the boss. Anyway, to answer your question, Ace Hardware has them. Long's Drugs. And you can get great big ones, that'll do everything, including major surgery, deliver a baby, appendectomies, anything. All you really need is, some Band-Aids and stuff like that. But it's nice to have in there. 3 road flares, a flashlight. I have a
Flare.
pardon?
Where do you get a flare?
Auto parts store. Every auto parts store has flares.
How much is a flare?
Oh, I think they're about $2 for 3 of them, something like that. They're really cheap. I forgot to bring a couple of night because I was going to go outside and strike one off. And
How do you light a flare?
You hit it on the cement, don't you?
well, actually, it's got an end. I think you break the end off and then you strike it, like striking a match. But that's usually the scary part. Go.
I keep mine under the front seat.
You have to be careful of them though, because if they get wet, they will they just fall apart. So you ought to check them periodically, make sure that they're all whole. If they start to turn
How
to
would
powder,
they get wet under the front seat?
who knows? But I always check them. I would suggest you check them every once in a while. Okay, and let's see, flashlight. I got a big flashlight back there that I keep in the car. Also keep a little guy. A fire extinguisher securely mounted in the vehicle. Now the one we have back there is about $21. A friend of mine by the name of Roger Barron has an outfit called Fire Eaters. And in your packet of stuff, you'll find a little flyer that he sends out with his fire extinguishers. And he supplies the city of Kensington, police department down there, with fire extinguishers. Told me today he had a situation where he went in and did the same fire extinguisher 3 times in 2 months. And he said to the chief, you must, it's a small department, you must be real heroes if you're using that many fire extinguishers to put out fires in people's cars. Well, they weren't. What happened was they did not mount it. Just threw it in the back of this particular squad car. 2 times it was in a pursuit. The thing banged around, broke off a little plastic chip, filled up not only the trunk with that powder. Has anybody ever seen one of those things go off? It'll fill this room. We'd have to run. It's horrible. And the kids at high school love to do that. They'd walk by, had these big ones, and they'd pull that off and it'd go all over the place. So,
Well, there's no place in a passenger car to put it.
well, he suggests putting it in front of the front seat.
How was it mounted?
Well, they have a little, I'll show you. I have one back here. He suggests putting it in with sheet metal screws. You know what a sheet metal screw is? It looks like a wood screw, but it's slightly different. And sometimes it has a hex head on it.
And then you hit it with your heel and it'll roll apart.
Not this one, because it's got a metal. Well,
Go in front of my feet. I couldn't get in the damn car.
well, then he says, hopefully you don't have a lot of people in your car in the back seat. You have it right on the floor in the back. And I'll tell you, it's an inconvenience. But has anybody here
A smaller one.
Yeah, but see, that's maybe not going to put out the fires. Anybody here had a car fire?
No, but when on Thanksgiving, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, there's a fire on Highway 4 on top of the hill. And the car, you could see it smoking. When I got up to the top of the hill, the car totally burned away.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you don't catch them right away, yeah, I want to pass this around
I
here.
have no idea if it was electric or flame.
This is here. Now he's
How about the pocket behind the seat?
well wherever, even in the trunk, you can mount them in the trunk. But the problem with the trunk is, then you have to get out, open the trunk, get the fire extinguisher. So that's right. That's right. See, but it's better than no extinguisher. Yeah, a little one's better than nothing, because once that gets going, it's all over. Your car's toast. We had here, I'll pass that down for you. We had, I had to put out a fire in front of my house years and years and years ago, and I had to run over, open the hood, put the fire out. There were 2 kids in the car, 2 young guys. Didn't have enough brains to get out. So I put the fire out, and to this day, those kids who are all grown up now think I'm a hero that saved their lives and all that stuff. And the only thing I did do was I had a fire extinguisher.
Of course, we should know how to operate that first of all.
Absolutely.
How you up?
How do you do it? Well, I'll show you how. We'll pull up. I know.
But that's the other, you have to recharge.
Yeah.
That's an awful big. It will be
That's right. But you only need it once. See, it's like a helmet that a race car driver uses. You only need that guy once, but when you need it, you really need it. And if you're afraid to use it, that's okay too, because somebody who comes along might say, "Oh, I'll take care of that for you, little lady." Puts out the fire, you know. But if you don't have a fire extinguisher, both of you might as well just sit back and toast
Letters
marshmallows.
of the alphabet they tell you to get. Certain ones will take care of what fire.
Yeah.
What letters you need for this car fire.
That's built for automobiles. This particular
I'm not
one.
going to buy that one.
Huh?
I'm going to buy the little one like I've got.
Well, it'll give you the instructions. You won't have to have a.
It came with 2 little ones for the kitchen.
Well, you'd have to read the instructions. AC, I can't remember
I don't know
exactly.
the alphabet.
But anyway,
You use one for one.
any fire extinguisher is better than none, because once that fire gets going, it's all over.
Well, how long don't those get old if they're never used?
No, what they do is get discharged. The pressure goes out, and that's got a gauge on it.
Oh, I see.
So when it gets into the green, into the red,
Mine's 4 years old, still charged.
yeah. Oh, they last a long time.
Has a gauge on it. Oh, I see.
You either replace it. This is a rechargeable cartridge. A lot of them are not rechargeable. Call this guy. Or any fire extinguisher. He says, I'm not the only guy that does this. There's lots of guys around who do it. I'd rather do it for people because I make the money then. But he says, look, I'm sorry.
Where do you?
Look in the yellow pages under fire extinguishers. And they'll either sell them to you or they'll recharge them.
Back 8 feet.
Oh yeah, when that goes off, make sure it's pointed in the right direction, because it's really exciting, and it snuffs out the fire. It removes the oxygen, and if you're in the middle of it and you're breathing, it's going to remove your oxygen. It's going to come up in your nose. Terrible. But the alternative is your car burns up.
Now, something I want to mention briefly. A neighbor of mine bought a phone for her car because of an emergency. Her husband has a pacemaker and he has heart condition and so forth. Well, anyway, in case she ever needed it, well, she's had it for 3 years, never had to use it. But over Thanksgiving, her husband began having trouble. They were in the car. She didn't know how to use her phone, and she didn't have the instructions in the car.
Well,
So, that's another.
see, periodically, one of the things I think people ought to carry in a car. My wife works at Kaiser Hospital, and sometimes she has to go at night. And I don't want her out there, and she doesn't want to be out there without some way to get the message out that she's in trouble. So even though this thing is relatively expensive, I think it's $25 a month, something like that. Anybody else have one of these but me?
I know some people that pay that much.
What do you guys pay, Matt? Yeah, how about you?
You don't want to know what my phone bill is.
Okay.
Service bill, I think on mine's 28.
Yeah, so it's an insurance policy, just to make absolutely sure that if you get stuck, you're not going to be really stuck. Carol drove to a lady's house for a party today, and she lives up in the Briones area, and it's through, people have been stuck in the mud there. Well, if she got stuck in the mud last night going to this nurse's party, she would have had 2 alternatives: either call for a tow truck from this phone or walk out. And this was like 6 or 7 miles back into the boondocks, and that's a long walk in the rain,
Is she by herself?
all by her lonesome. So, very brave lady. She's not afraid of anything. But I said, take the phone just in case. So she did, and fortunately she didn't have a problem. And we also talked a couple of weeks ago, you remember, about if you have one of those phones and you're stuck or you're stopped and some bad guy approaches you, you can always pull it out and start punching. And somebody here, I can't remember who it was, says that happened. Was that you? Friend of mine? She said,
It was one of my neighbors, but the phone wasn't hooked up. Just busted anyway.
but it spooked the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, nobody wants to have to hassle an armed robbery or a rape or any of that kind of stuff. They want it to be as easy as possible. And it's a terrible thing to say, but if you can get him away from you, he might go do all that stuff to somebody else, but hopefully they'll have a telephone too. But what you want to do is make sure that you're safe and you're not in a predicament that you can't get out of easily, because a lot of people are. What else we got up there? Let's see. Cellular phone, auto club card. Everybody here's in the AAA, right? Who is not? You're not? You ought to have some kind of tow service. God, when my kids were growing up, we used the heck out of that thing. Everybody had a card. It was $25 a year. We're in the AAA. We don't buy AAA insurance because I think it's too much money. And when the kids were young, we didn't qualify anyway because we had so many accidents and stuff like that. But and a pair of work gloves. And I only used them in the car once. And that was when I lifted that hood of that car because the carburetor was on fire. Old Fords had that problem. And I stuck my hand in there with a glove and opened the hood. And I could get the hood up. Because as soon as you lift that hood up, if it's flaming under there, you lift the hood up, it's going to get a good dose of oxygen. The flames are going to go as high as a telephone pole.
If we don't lift the hood
Can't get in there with a fire extinguisher otherwise. So you have two ways to go. You let the car burn all the way down and watch it go, or give it your best shot. So what I did, I turned my head sideways. And if you watch cops, they'll do the same thing. Or the firemen. They're always wearing gloves when they go after a car fire. And they also always raise the hood, and they have these great big bolt cutters. Because the next thing they do, as soon as they get the hood open, is chop off the battery cable. Because most of those fires are caused by some kind of an electrical problem. So anyway, a pair of gloves is cheap enough to keep it in your...
Those are too big for the glove compartment.
Yeah, they are. Most glove compartments are pretty small. That's why I keep mine under the seat. And I also put my name on, because you never know. Okay, so some of the other things, let's see, prepare for an emergency. I think everybody ought to try a flare, because they're cheap. I think you ought to try changing your own tire. And it's possible that Mount Diablo School District, the lady there, asked me, would you be interested in teaching that kind of a course? 3 sessions, how to do basic stuff to your car, change the tire, change the air filter, just kind of get a feel for an automobile. And I think it might be a good thing. But see, the problem with adult schools, except for this one, because this is a slightly different program, is you can't limit it to women only, because that's discriminatory. And I would prefer to have either all males or all females, because my experience with an auto adult class is the guys get in there and they intimidate the females. And the gals will kind of hold back. At least this is the way it was 10 years ago. So, but that may change. And if, what I'll do is I'll get everybody's name and address from the adult school here. And if it comes about, I'll just send you a card saying, here, we're going to have a class on it. And if you're interested, fine.
If you give it a title like this, it probably will interest them.
I hope so.
Well,
I mean, I get along good with
I do without a man, so maybe the way you label your course.
Well, I had to arm wrestle them to do that. Oh, they didn't want to call it that. No, they didn't want to get the state after him. Anyway, I think that everybody ought to try some advanced driver training, if possible. The only problem is nobody teaches it. I might have to start that myself.
That's not the same as 55 Alive, is it?
Yeah, but that's just a joke class.
Oh, well, I know I started saying...
It's lecture class. No, I'm talking about getting behind a wheel and going through a skid pan.
But that 55 Alive is,
Have you taken that?
yeah.
Not hot, huh?
Whoever teaches it, I guess, would be different.
I'll have to look into that.
It's kind of a refresher just to remind you of little things that you
Tell you
should,
to
should not
readjust
do.
your mirrors.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Whoa, that's pretty basic. Whoa. Okay. I think advanced driver training ought to be a little bit more.
All of these women can't take that 55 Alive. I mean, most of them here.
Well, you have to be over
I'm
55?
Yeah. Right.
Then you get
That's
30%
discriminatory.
off on your insurance, supposedly.
Yeah.
But then they told me I couldn't get it because at the time, I still had a son with an adult.
Oh yeah, that's a real deterrent to a lot of insurance stuff. If you got kids at home, watch out. Tell them to send them to college. Once they were 100 miles away, it changes. Okay, now beginning or advanced auto courses, or beginning basic auto courses. Now the problem there, and I check with everybody today, nobody has a course in basic auto maintenance. no school. So a guy like me would have to do it privately. And I could if I had a shop where I could push everything out, bring everybody in, and that sort of thing. And that's something that we may do down the line. But I've looked for videos on it. I can't find a video that I think is worth a darn, because what they do is they hire a race driver. They think that's going to appeal to people, that a race driver is telling you how to change your oil. Well, just because he was second place in the Indy 500 2 years ago does not necessarily mean that he can explain things correctly. So I hate to tell you this, but there is no beginning basic auto maintenance courses available. If you come across one, please call me and let me know, because my card's in the front of that.
You can make a video yourself.
Would you buy it?
Yeah.
Whoa. Well, okay, maybe we will. We'll keep you on that list anyway.
You see, when you make these things, if there's no way of getting out that it's available, nobody would know it was there.
Have to be marketed. Well, maybe I'll go into a new career. Who knows? Pardon? Infomercial, yeah. I don't know. I don't think I look too good on television. Too old. Anyway, I was going to have you do a critique, and we've run out of time. I don't have a form anyway. What I'd like you to do is, you have the address of the school here. Make a note. Tell them if you like it, don't like it, if it should be longer, shorter. Higgins should dye his hair, whatever you think. Okay? And that's. Is there any more questions? Anybody have something? What would you have preferred to see covered in here? Anything more extensively? Another 2 hours?
Just 3 nights.
4 nights? However long, huh? 10 nights.
I don't know.
You know, it'd be nice to go over the parts of an engine,
Lay everything out.
you know, just, I mean, every car's a little bit different, but what they
Oh,
all
sure.
do,
They all got
what a-
pistons and rings and gaskets. And
I know, but what a generator and all.
sure. Oh, what a good idea. Some years ago, I did 6 pilots for an outfit, and it was I was on the air, and my name on the air was Dr. Grease. I was on 2 hours every Saturday for 3 years, call-in show. And R.C. David labeled me Dr. Grease, and great guy. His brother's a Jaguar mechanic, so he and I got along real good. But we did 6 pilots, and one of them was, how does a turbocharger work? How does an engine work? What are all the emission control systems? And they weren't great, but they were only one take. In other words, the guy said, okay, Hagen, here's what we need you to say, something like this. One shot, that's it. We're only going to do it once. So, the first couple of them I was a little nervous, more than a little nervous, but they got better. So those kinds of things could be done easily enough, I think. Do you think they should be little individual ones, or one big one that covers everything?
Well, not all engines are alike, are they?
Well, no, but they're pretty.
Dashboards are all different in every car.
That's true, but cars still have pistons and rings, cylinder head.
How serious is that?
Yeah, sure.
Change a battery. I had to.
Oh boy, that's
mine
a
thing.
terrible job.
Mine died in my garage.
Oh,
So I was able to get it out here and run down to the auto parts store and get a long socket for my,
oh, that can be.
ratchet. And I got it out, but they're so heavy, I thought I was going to kill my back. But I knew how to do it just from reading my manual. I bought a shop manual. But like how to, use jumper cable, because I won't let anybody do that because
Oh.
I'm so afraid they'll blow something
Get
out.
those leads crossed and
Right.
and your
Good
computer's
to do
history.
that.
Yeah, sure.
Stuff like that would
Fry
be
up the
great.
dashboard.
You printed the instructions from the AAA in your column one time.
I can believe that.
And I have that cut out and in a baggie and attached to my jumper cable.
Did I give credit to the AAA? Oh, good. Okay. I don't want to think. Don't want them to think I steal
A
this
long
stuff.
time ago.
Whoa. Well, I've been doing this for 19 years, writing those features. But change that battery.
And I had someone argue with me. One time I had a dead battery and I asked if someone would jump me, and the lady got really adamant about wanting to attach all 4 of them. I said, no, one has to go on the car, not on the battery. And she wouldn't do it. She said, I want my car to blow up. I said, well, it says here, Bob Hagen said.
Oh, God. Oh, jeez. Whoa. Well, maybe we'll do that. Maybe I'll get in the video.
My battery was bad because it was bulging and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
about 4 years old and it's a 5-year warranty. But I knew what was wrong with it, so it was a matter of having somebody take me down to get a new diehard and back home again. But it took me a while to get that thing out.
Oh, it's miserable. The hardest part to me is getting the clamp off if it's been on there for a long time.
It
because you have to take off. You have to take them off in the right sequence. You know, take off the
I have the directions, and I just happen to have a long torque on that extension, so I was able to.
yeah.
You know,
Sometimes you have to, I've had to cut them off with a hacksaw, slice them, peel them off, because if you don't, it breaks the terminal off the battery, and then you're really in a mess because you can't get it out, you can't move it, you can't do anything. So a person really has to be kind of careful when you're taking a battery out of a car and make sure that that clamp is loose. You can kind of pry it apart and lift it up. Here's a quick tip for you. And my daughter Darcy didn't believe me, and finally she had to do it. She said, battery's dead, but I try and start it and the headlights go down, and it was raining. Whenever it rains, corrosion can build up between the clamp and the post. So I said, okay, and she was living in Oakland at the time. I said, get a Coke, shake it up, squirt the Coke on it, because it neutralizes the acid. And she did, and it started. And to this day, she thinks I'm a genius. About Diet Coke, I don't know which, maybe Sprite. Maybe Sprite would work.
You bought a Coke, and now you got to know all these different words.
Classic, Coke Classic, and Diet Coke. Anyway, if you, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, that's a great book. I just skimmed through it.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah. Maybe I'll write one of those too.
Yeah, that's really good. There's stuff in there
Yeah,
about
this-
buying cars as well as what
It's a big
mechanics
market
don't
for,
want you to know.
yeah, that's right.
I'm going to try to get those at the bookstore.
Okay. Actually, he sent me that one. The guy did. Yeah, I get a lot of called desk copies. You know.